Toulon, 1793. A port city perched on the Mediterranean, embroiled in revolution, treason, and foreign meddling. It was here, amid smoke and chaos, that a certain young artillery officer named Napoleon Bonaparte would rise from the shadows, ready to make his name. But don't be fooled into thinking this was the work of a brilliant general commanding vast legions. No, in this story, Napoleon was just a lowly officer with sharp eyes, sharper wit, and a plan so bold that even his bumbling superiors couldn't ignore him. Welcome to the shadows and the past, where history meets mystery and the past is your present. Hit the like and subscribe to join us as we delve into a world where the boundaries between survival and demise are as unpredictable as the winds that whip across the desolate landscapes of history's forgotten battlefields. At this time, the fledgling French Republic was in absolute turmoil. It was surrounded by enemies, inside and out. Royalists in Toulon had decided they'd had enough of this revolution nonsense, and in a move both audacious and desperate, threw open the city gates to the British and Spanish. The Royalists welcomed Admiral Hood and his fleet with open arms, hoping the foreign powers would crush the revolution like a bug underfoot. Now, Toulon wasn't just any city. It was the base of the French Mediterranean fleet, a prize jewel that controlled access to the sea. Whoever controlled Toulon controlled the Mediterranean. It was the kind of strategic asset no government could afford to lose. So, the French Republic did what they always did when things went wrong. They sent an army. Unfortunately for the Republic, the army they sent wasn't exactly the stuff of legends. Leading the forces was General Carteau, a man who, and this is putting it charitably, had the military acumen of a well-meaning house painter, which incidentally was exactly what he was before the revolution. Picture him now, standing outside the walls of Toulon, scratching his head, trying to figure out how to retake the city. His solution: throw men at it, repeatedly. This is where a young Napoleon Bonaparte enters the picture. He arrived in Toulon as a chief of artillery, a role that might have seemed secondary to the more glamorous positions of infantry or cavalry command. But Napoleon, with his sharp eye for strategy, didn't see it that way. Upon assessing the situation, he quickly realized that Toulon itself wasn't the key. The key to victory lay in Les Guillettes, a promontory that overlooked the harbor and commanded the city's naval access. If the French could take this high ground, they could position their artillery to blast the British and Spanish fleet right out of the water. Simple, right? Well, not so fast. Napoleon had to first convince his superiors, who, as we've established, weren't exactly brimming with genius. Carteau and his cronies were obsessed with the idea of storming the city itself, like medieval knights besieging a castle. But Napoleon, he saw the bigger picture. Ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon might have said, had he been prone to Churchillian speeches, the road to victory lies through Les Guillettes. If we take it, we will have Toulon in the palm of our hands. Naturally, his superiors were skeptical, but Napoleon was persistent, perhaps one of his greatest qualities, and eventually Carteau relented, more out of desperation than conviction. With the plan in motion, Napoleon set to work organizing the artillery. And here is where his true genius began to shine. To the untrained eye, artillery might seem simple, point and shoot. But Napoleon treated his cannons like instruments in an orchestra, carefully positioning them to create a symphony of destruction. His bombardment was precise, relentless, and utterly devastating. Now let's take a moment to appreciate Admiral Hood, a seasoned British commander who, up until this point, had been enjoying his stay in Toulon as though it were a holiday on the Mediterranean coast. Hood's ship sat comfortably in the harbor, secure in the knowledge that the French couldn't possibly touch them. But when Napoleon's artillery started raining down hellfire from Les Guillettes, Hood's holiday came to an abrupt end. The British and Spanish forces, now under severe pressure, launched a counterattack to retake the high ground. For a brief moment, it looked as though they might succeed. The tension was palpable, and Napoleon himself was wounded in the thigh by a bayonet during the assault. But as history has shown us, Napoleon was not one to let a little thing like a bayonet wound slow him down. He refused to leave the battlefield, continuing to direct the artillery with all the fervor of a conductor leading an orchestra through a crescendo. With Napoleon's steady hand, the French managed to hold onto Liguillet. The British and Spanish, unable to dislodge the French artillery, had no choice but to retreat. As Napoleon's guns roared over the harbour, Hood, now out of options, ordered the British fleet to abandon Toulon. Ships were set ablaze, and the once proud harbour was engulfed in flames as the foreign forces fled. Victory. Toulon was back in Republican hands. But, as with all great victories, there was a grim aftermath. The Republican forces, eager to punish the Royalists for their betrayal, exacted brutal revenge. Thousands of Royalists were executed in the purge that followed. Even Napoleon, for all his tactical brilliance, couldn't stop the wrath of the revolution. For Napoleon Bonaparte, this was the beginning of everything. Toulon was where he first stepped out of the shadows and into the light of history. His brilliant plan had saved the Republic's Mediterranean fleet and earned him the rank of brigadier general at the tender age of 24. Not bad for an unknown artillery officer from Corsica. As he watched the British ships retreat into the horizon, it's not hard to imagine Napoleon already thinking of the future. Toulon wasn't just a victory, it was a prelude to greater things. Here, on this smouldering battlefield, we catch our first glimpse of the man who would one day shake Europe to its core. Thus ends this tale of Toulon, where a young artillery officer turned the tide of battle with audacity, brilliance, and a singular vision. And so, dear viewers, remember, history, like war, is often decided not by the mightiest army, but by the sharpest mind. Ah well, such is life in the shadows. Now that you've heard the tale of Toulon, what do you think? Could you have spotted the key to victory like Napoleon did? Or would you have been content watching General Carteau fumble about? Let us know in the comments below. After all, history is nothing without debate. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with more untold stories of military brilliance, daring underdogs, and battles that changed the course of history. We'd love to hear which lesser-known figures or battles you'd like to see featured next on The Shadows and the Past. Welcome to The Shadows and the Past, where history meets mystery, and the past is your present.